I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard NOC Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different perspective.
Welcome to Hard NOC Life. I am Keith Chow.
I'm Britney Monet.
You know, I wasn't going to record this week, Brittany. I was like, what's happening? Nothing. Guardians of the Galaxy making a lot of money at the box office. You know, it's Mother's Day. Could take a break. But then over the weekend, the Hollywood Reporter dropped this bombshell of a report about Superman Legacy. So I'm like, Brittany, let's talk about Superman.
Yeah.
As much as we complain about rebooting universes and everything, but this is kind of like the exciting stuff that I remember whenever like a new version of Batman's coming out or a new it's always like, who are they going to cast? Who are they going to cast? And I forgot what it's like to be this kind of, you know, intrigued by leaked, rumored casting lists. But this Hollywood Reporter story I shared with you over the weekend really like piqued my interest because we weren't sure where they were going to go with the casting for this new DC universe. You know, both you and I have expressed our support for Henry Cavill. But I did find it interesting that the front runner for Superman, at least according to the Hollywood Reporter, is this guy named David Cornsweet, who's you may know him from the show Hollywood and The Politician on Netflix. He was also in the movie Pearl.
I've seen Hollywood.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a young Henry Cavill, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Let's start with that, David Cornsweet. I mean, he's not the only name, and we'll talk about some of the other names, but he's kind of in the lead as far as like, what do you think of him? I mean, I'm not too familiar with him, to be completely honest, other than seeing photos of him online. I've seen episodes of The Politician in Hollywood here and there, but I'm not too familiar with him. Where are you on Mr. Cornsweet?
Like, I've even trying to remember if what he did on Hollywood was anything where I'd be like, yeah, I could, like, in terms of acting skills, if he's someone who I would be like, okay, yeah, that's Superman, but look-wise, he totally looks like Superman. Because, I don't know, he's also so, like, I think that's my thing. Sometimes the actors are really pretty. You're like, well, can they also, like, play nerdy really well without being, like, weird and a stereotype? That's where I'm at with it, because I don't remember much of his... I really don't remember who he played on Hollywood. I've seen Hollywood and knew he was on it, but I couldn't, like, think who he was off the top of my head, so... But there's an actor in rumored list where I'm not sure where they are because now there's a different report coming out. But like, no, they're actually up for this character. But that actor, I would be interested in either role if they were to get it.
Well, let's talk about it. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to beat around the bush. Probably the biggest name in the rumored casting lists is Nick Holt, who you're a big fan of. You just watched Renfield. You know, that was your nerd popping a couple weeks ago. And what you're referring to is that Nick Holt in the Hollywood Reporter story, which actually, for what it's worth, led more credence to than Deadline, but whatever. They said that he's the only option for Lex Luthor. But then Deadline came out with a conflicting report saying actually he's in the running for Superman too. So I dig him for Luthor, to be completely honest. I'm not sure I see him as Superman. I know you're a fan of Holt. He was also runner-up to Pattinson for Batman, which is interesting that like Nick Holt is everyone's favorite DC superhero. But why do you think he'd be an intriguing Superman?
I think he's someone who can play like the sweet and like, you know, kind of like nerdy, endearing part really, really well. So that's why I feel like him playing that aspect of Superman or like Clark is not something that I'm worried about. I don't know so much about coming off like, you know, I don't know. I don't know if he can do like the action-y stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, not that he can't. I mean, like in Superman style is where I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
he did action obviously in Renfield. If you've seen Renfield, and
I mean, he's been in superhero
X-Men
movies. He was Beast in the X-Men movie. So
yeah. So I just feel like I don't know if like he can carry. That's the only thing is I also feel like he would be really great as Lex Luthor. So I'm just like, I would be, I think, okay either way.
I think for me, I mean, this sounds totally superficial, but like, I just don't think Nick Holt has he just comes off as like a lanky dude. You know what I mean? Like, even in the X-Men movies, you know, I mean, he has to be in makeup to be Beast, right? Like when he's just Hank, he's this kind of like, which is, I think, the point in the X-Men movies, kind of like, you know, a skinny, nerdy guy, which I think makes sense. But as Superman, I feel like he's got to have the jawline. And I don't know, I just don't see it for Nicholas Hoult. But as Lex, like that kind of piqued my interest because it's like, oh, you know, he can play like the, you know, really smart genius like he was in X-Men and everything. But then like if you remember him in Mad Max, he can be like crazy too.
Oh yeah,
And he looks good bald. So like
and then if you've seen the menu, you know he can kind of play a little bit of a, you know, an asshole pretty well. So
right. And in The Great, I think he's kind of like a jerk, right? The
I haven't watched that show, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I'm super hyped for Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Less hyped for him in the running for Superman, to be honest.
But I've heard there's a Guardians actor that has been talked to about, you know, Lex Luthor, and if it's Batista, I don't know. That might be an interesting casting choice too. So
yeah. Well, so yeah, the same Deadline reporter who reports that Nick Hoult is in the running for Superman also said that during the Guardians of the Galaxy press junket, there was a rumor that James Gunn had spoken to one of the Guardians actors. He didn't, you know, he never revealed who, but the speculation is Dave Bautista because, you know, Dave Bautista's, I think he's even mentioned like someone fan cast him as Luthor a while ago. And he was like, I can see that. I'd rather be Luthor than Bane, you know, because a lot of people also fan cast Bautista as Bane.
Yeah, I feel like Bane is like the obvious casting choice for him.
Yeah. And he's like, in my point in my career, I'd rather be a Lex Luthor, which is intriguing because I think Gunn has said Dave Bautista is the best, or maybe it was Ryan Johnson said it. Dave Bautista is the best wrestler turned actor.
I think he is.
Yeah. Compared to like John Cena and Dwayne Johnson, you know.
Well, I think it's because I knew he took it seriously because when he got the role of Drax, he actually went and took acting classes to like, you know, and then he's done so many other cool different projects since then, whether or not like you've actually seen them. He's done like a lot of interesting work since like outside of Guardians and not just the Glass Onion too.
Let me throw another wrinkle though. There is a Guardians actor who has been Lex Luthor before. I don't know if you realize Michael Rosenbaum plays one of the Ravagers. He's real good friends with James Gunn. Could we possibly have Michael Rosenbaum return to Lex Luthor?
I would love that because I love Michael Rosenbaum as Luthor. I would really like that. That'd be so much fun. I don't know if he would go that route of recasting someone who's already pretty much done the role. Especially, I feel like the only thing is, I feel like that would piss a lot of people off if they bring it back Rosenbaum, but then like not Henry Cavill for Superman. Like I would have loved to have seen a Michael Rosenbaum Luthor and Henry Cavill Superman. Like that would have been a lot of fun.
Well, you know, like it seems to be the DC universe is like a combination hodgepodge of many different universes, right? Because like Ezra sticking around, if Jason Momoa sticking around as Aquaman. You know, we have like elements of the Snyderverse, you know, the Peacemaker verse and the Suicide Squad are sticking around from the previous universe. So like, why not pull someone from Smallville? I mean, hell, Michael Rosenbaum is still to date the best live action Lex Luthor. Why not give him a shot on the screen? By no means are we saying it's Rosenbaum, but you know, if it's a Guardians actor he talked to, maybe he talked to Rosenbaum.
Yeah, because he technically is a Guardians actor, even though most people are going to think of the core, like, you know, team.
And he had more scenes in Volume 3 than in Volume 2, right? Like, I was actually surprised how much he was in Volume 3. And he's actually more recognizable. In Volume 2, he's only in, like, one scene, and you can't tell who he is. But in Volume 3, like, they did the CGI to make him look more like Rosenbaum. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
And then, I don't know, maybe even Bradley Cooper, too.
Oh, I could see him potentially being. So we're clearly thinking if he's going with either Batista, Rosenbaum, or Bradley Cooper, going for much older Lex Luthor than Superman, because Superman is, you know, he's said clearly he wants a young Superman.
Yeah, I don't know if that's to even make it more like Lex is just bothering a teenager, go away. I don't know if that's like, you know, what he wants.
Well, I think whatever he does to go the complete opposite direction of Jesse Eisenberg is a good choice.
Yeah, I love Jesse Eisenberg, but that was not his role.
Yeah, he's not Lex Luthor, sorry. But let's get to my favorite casting choices.
Okay.
Because Lois Lane is one of my favorite comic book characters, like bar none, right? And Erica Durance will forever be my favorite Lois Lane, but it's a role that you can either get really, really right, like Erica Durance or Margot Kidder or even Amy Adams, or you get really, really wrong, like Kate Bosworth. So the 4 actresses in the Hollywood Reporter story. So the leading contender is Emma Mackey. She's in Netflix's Sex Education. She's also going to be in Barbie coming up, and she's like really good friends with Margot Robbie, which
she looks like Margot Robbie.
She's one of those actresses that looks like Margot Robbie. And in fact, another one of the casting rumors is another Margot Robbie clone, Samara Weaving, who's in the Scream movies.
She's only in one, but she's in Ready or Not, which is
she's that Ready or Not. She was also Scarlet in Snake Eyes. So big fan of Samara Weaving. The other actress in the running is Rachel Brosnahan, who's from Amazon's Marvelous Ms. Maisel. She's the star of that show. And a Bridgerton actress I'm not familiar with because I haven't watched Bridgerton, Phoebe Divinor. I don't know if you know which Bridgerton character she is.
I want to say that's the one who, like, she's in the first season. I can't remember her character's name, but the one who ends up with the guy who's in Dungeons and Dragons.
Of those 4, I don't know, you have, how familiar are you with the 4 actresses in the running for Lois Lane?
I feel like I've seen enough of them to be like, they're all great choices. And I feel like they're all like obvious choices. I don't know. Maybe I was hoping to see some like women of color thrown up.
So, right. Yeah. I was actually going to get there eventually, but for sure, especially with Lois Lane, like in the new animated Superman show. I don't know if you saw there was like a trailer for it recently. I think it's going to be on Cartoon Network. It was supposed to come out on HBO Max a couple years ago. And then, HBO Max is getting rid of all of their content. And now I think it's coming out on Amazon, or is that just the Batman show? Either way, they're finally releasing My Life with Superman. And in that, Lois Lane's Asian American. And there's a brand new Sarah Kuhn book where Lois Lane's Asian American. So it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to like start casting people of color in these roles. But James Gunn's cast list is all white, so that's kind of that's definitely an issue. I thought there is also rumors that potentially Lex could be black, which other than the animated series, like Superman and Lois threw a curve when they tried to make us think Lex was black in that show, but turned out it was not Lex after all. But
I think it was just because so many people like, oh, so you think when it's the villain you can cast a person of color, but when you need the hero or love interest, that's I think the issue was with that show. And it didn't help that a writer had came out and talked about the environment and stuff. So I think that's why they switched up on the Lex Luthor thing, honestly. Yeah. But yeah, I just hope it. I mean, I know James Gunn is not known for always casting people of color as bad guys. Like, I mean, if you've seen like everything that he's done, he's not that white guy. Mm-hmm. But I just hope that maybe at least with Lois Lane, switch it up. I don't know. Brenda Song came to mind for some reason for Lois Lane. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen maybe some women of color on that list, in my opinion.
I mean, there's the age thing too, but I remember when they were first hinting at the fact that the Snyderverse may change. I had campaigned for, well, not campaign is a strong word. I didn't campaign, but I suggested perhaps Henry Golding could have been a good Superman. But yeah, I think you're right that like it is a little disappointing that all of the names are your standard white folks. One name that did stick out that I was like, I don't know if I see him as Superman. You watch Euphoria. What do you think of Jacob Elordi's name being put out there for Superman?
My gosh.
I guess if you want Superman to be like a broy jerk, he works.
Well, I think that the problem is with Jacob is that he gets cast all the time as like
the douchebag.
The douchebag, or like the guy who isn't super, super ridiculously friendly. Not necessarily an asshole, but he's not also super friendly. Like, and I think it would be interesting to see him play someone who's just like full on endearing and stuff.
Actually, that's a good point, because people forget before Captain America, Chris Evans was known as like the broy douchebag actor too, right? Like
In a way, yeah.
you know, like I remember back, like this is over 10 years ago now, more than that, 15 years ago maybe, that like when it was being bandied about that Chris Evans would be Captain America, I remember thinking like that guy, because he made sense as Johnny Storm, because that was in his wheelhouse.
Yeah,
as,
wheelhouse,
like, a
yes.
douchebag, but Captain America, but he's clearly the best ever in that role, you're right. Like you can't picture anyone else as Steve Rogers.
Yeah, and he might be coming back, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I like Jacob Elordi, and he's very tall. He's like 6'4", 6'5". So I can see why, in terms of height, like you're like, yeah, let's get that guy. He's tall, so he's gonna, really, I think, stand out as in terms of like being in a costume as Superman. I think he would look really cool.
Yeah, because I think even the corn sweat guy, he's got like the facial features of Superman, but he's not big. I think he's tall. He might be like 6'3", 6'4", but he doesn't have a lot of bulk. He would need to bulk up if he's going to be Superman.
I think for me, I can see Jacob bulking up more than is it David?
Yeah, David Corn Sweat.
But I would be interested in seeing Jacob playing someone a little bit more endearing and sweet, and it would be a change up. But even then, I don't know. I can't think of like actors of color in that age range who would be Superman, and I feel like everyone is like maybe technically slightly too old. I don't think of the only person that I feel like he's so small is Ryan Potter.
Ryan Potter, yeah. I don't think he could play Superman. What's his name? Nick Holt, isn't he in his like 30s?
Oh yeah, well Nick Holt has literally looked the same age for like the last like, 15
well, and
years.
that's kind of why I can't picture him as Superman either, to be honest. He still looks like he's gives off too much like lanky nerdy vibes to be like he could be a great Clark, but I can't see him in the red and blue.
Yeah, he's literally looked like he's like, I don't know, he's just looked like he's young for a long time. That's what I think of Warm Bodies when they make that joke. They're like, oh, he's got that face where like, he looks like he's like underage, but he also might be like well into his 20s, and it's funny because he still looks like that. And that movie was from what, 2008,
Yeah,
2009?
That was the first movie, like, I don't know did that come out before the X-Men movies?
Yeah. And then he was also on Skins.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I've seen a decent amount of all the stuff that Nick Holt has been. So it's just really funny that he's pretty much looked the same since Warm Bodies.
Right. And like this is part you had said you wish that Renfield did better so that they would make sequels, but the fact that Renfield doesn't do well gives him time to be either Superman or Lex. So
it does, but it is still because it was actually a good movie. Like watch Renfield, even if you don't think he's gonna be a good Superman or Lex Luthor, like whatever, just watch Renfield. It's so good.
For what it's worth, Nick Cage was the Superman that never was. So
yeah,
that's an interesting connection there. I'll just say this, like I haven't been this whoever they end up casting, like I'm digging the Corn Sweat as Superman, Nick Holt as Lex Luthor, and my choice of the 4 actresses that is in the running is Emma Mackey from Sex Education as Lois. She's just, to me, has got the vibe and the spunk to be Lois Lane. And again, she's a friend of Margot Robbie's, and Margot and James Gunn have that Suicide Squad connection. So I feel like that's if it's those 3 playing Clark, Lex, and Lois, I'm actually more excited for the Superman Legacy than I was 3 days ago.
Someone also said though that Nick would make a good Jimmy Olsen.
Which is weird because he's the oldest of everyone that they're
I know, but I think it's just that's the type of like, I think he falls into that archetype really well. So yeah, I don't know.
And that might be if there is a Jimmy in the movie, that might be a place where they may cast a person of color like they did in Supergirl. Although as much as I like Mehcad Brooks, I still feel like, in my personal opinion, I would have cast Echo Kellum as Jimmy Olsen, who played Mr. Terrific in
Arrow. Has more of the.
He's got more of the Jimmy vibe than like Mehcad made Jimmy like this buff, sexy dude. It's like that's not Jimmy. Jimmy Olsen should be like the nerdy guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the casting rumors. This could be all for naught. Like these are just rumors. You know, even James Gunn was like, I don't comment on auditions. And like James Gunn, he addresses every single fucking tweet. And sometimes you want him to just like stop replying to people. But he didn't say anything about the Hollywood Reporter story. So I tend to give credence to what they say. So we'll see.
We'll see, yeah. Speaking of other actors, I don't know if we've talked about this, but Aaron Taylor Johnson is rumored to be the new James Bond.
So we're saying that Craven is not going to work out, is what that tells me.
Look, I'm seeing Craven just for him, and I might see it 5 times just because of him. So if that movie does well at the box office, it was me.
Yeah. I could see him as Batman in James Gunn's universe too.
I could too, but I feel like I don't know. I don't know if James would actually pick him as Batman.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break, and after the break, we'll just go straight to Nerd Pop and then wrap up for this brief episode of Hard NOC Life. So, Brittany,
yes,
you're a big fan of Paramount Plus, aren't you?
Oh, I am indeed. That is the home of one of my favorite shows, which I know some people I've talked about it.
Yeah. You're not the demographic.
I know I'm not the demographic, but the show I'm talking about is obviously Yellowstone. If you don't know, I love Yellowstone, and it's literally one of the most like. I'm saying I know a lot of people like, oh, it seems like it's for like rednecks or something like that. I promise you, the drama is so good. It's just, and if you're a fan of Twilight, there's like an actor from Twilight that's on there.
Well, it's one of the biggest shows in the world.
Yes.
And it's got these like great spinoffs, right? Because isn't 1923 a spinoff of Yellowstone and 1883? Am I getting those years correct?
No, it's 1923. I'm not there yet on the spinoffs.
But it's got like Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, like.
Yes.
That's crazy that those are like actors you get for TV shows.
Tim McGraw and Faith Hill are on the 18 one, if you are a country fan, which Tim McGraw is honestly a really great actor. I don't know if you've ever seen Friday Night Lights, but he's a great actor. So they're great. Those are great things to check out. I have to wait for my mom and brother to watch it because we are such a fan of the show. Teen Wolf is also on Paramount Plus, and they released a new movie with Tyler Hoechlin is in it and back. So I'm excited to watch that finally when I get around to it. I know it's been like 2 months now, but it's hard to coordinate our schedules.
Well, the reason we're bringing up Paramount Plus is that if you click on the link in the description to this podcast, you can actually stream Paramount Plus for 1 month for free. We're just excited that we get to share Paramount Plus with all of our listeners. So click on the link that you see in the description and stream Paramount Plus for free for a month. Try it. If you don't like it, you can cancel. But if you love it, if you love Yellowstone, Teen Wolf, Star Trek, all of the Star Treks are on Paramount Plus. Do that, and you'll help us out in the process. Before we get to what's nerd poppin', Brittany, I did want to also share one little story that you and I had talked about a couple weeks ago that you had hoped for the Ahsoka show we'd get Freddie Prinze Jr. back. He was on a podcast recently, was like, fuck no, I'm never coming back. And I know you were sad about that. I just wanted to give you a chance to bemoan the fact that we'll never see live action Kanan Jarrus in Star Wars.
I mean, again, like he could be lying because like a lot of people have to realize that like actors, they sign NDAs when they sign on to a lot of this stuff, the bigger nerd stuff that we love. And part of those NDAs is you're really not supposed to like, unless you're Patti LuPone, you're not supposed to be breaking your NDA. Like, Freddie Prinze Jr. is well known, he could probably still get Big Trouble. And since he has actually money, Disney might actually be like, yeah, we can sue you. So he could.
But if you listen to the podcast, he seemed pretty like his thing was almost like, even if they wanted him back, he doesn't want to do it because he already feels like the couple of times where Kanan did come back, whether it was a voice cameo in Rise of Skywalker or as little baby Caleb Dune in Bad Batch, he's like, he says in the podcast that he was being interviewed, was like, he basically feels like it cheapens Kanan's death. And so like seeing even, flashback or whatever, just seeing Kanan again, he doesn't want any part of it. So it could be Freddie Prinze Jr. saying, I don't want to be Kanan again. And we may see a Kanan in the show that's not Freddie Prinze Jr., which
that's true, but I think he doesn't look like Kanan though. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
right. Like
He
he
never
he
has.
definitely has a complete. Although Force Ghost Kanan, you can just put him in a ponytail. But yeah, his features are too distinct. That I mean, that's why like I thought if Freddie Prinze Jr. would ever play live action Kanan, he'd have to play with when Kanan was wearing that helmet all the time when he was blind.
Yeah, because he his face wise, that's one thing I've always thought is that he doesn't look like Kanan. And I remember I had tweeted I would love to see Freddie do something live action with Star Wars, and like, oh well, he can play Kanan. I'm like, yeah, but he doesn't look like Kanan too. That's the other thing.
A long time ago, I wrote a post on the Nerds of Color where I cast a live action Rebels, and this was back in the day before they started casting voice actors as the actual live action version. So I always chose a different actor for each character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny enough, I chose Rosario to play Hera because I thought she just embodied Hera more than Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
And then my pick for live action Kanan Jarrus was actually Javier Munoz, who was the alternate Hamilton in Broadway.
I could see that.
And like that was especially when he was playing Hamilton, he had his hair pulled back in a ponytail all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, Javier Munoz could be Kanan Jarrus. And I think he still works age-wise. Although, you know what? The age shit is all fucked up now because, like, again, we talked about before, Mary Elizabeth Winstead does not seem to be the right age to play post Return of the Jedi Hera Syndulla. But
yeah,
that's neither here nor there. What's nerd poppin', Brittany Monet?
I don't know if this is nerdy, but I really enjoy the trailer for Flamin' Hot, which comes out June 9th on Hulu. It is about the man who actually invented the Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
The janitor, right?
Yes. So it looks really good. Eva Longoria directed it. I cannot wait for it to drop on Hulu. That's also my nerd popping because I was like, oh my God, this looks so fun. And then I've started rewatching Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep it on Hulu for me because what's nerd popping for me? This is how behind the times I am. This is nerd popping for a show that came out a year ago, but I finally started The Bear.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm 3 episodes in, so I'm not fully finished with it. But after 3 episodes, I'm like, why did it take me a year to watch the show? It's real good. And then, seeing the dude from Andor, I was like, that's what Brittany was talking about.
Yeah, he was literally like doing that and Andor, and I think he's on like something else, but it's just he's really doing the thing, that guy.
Yeah. So no, it's a great show. But the reason I started watching The Bear is, and I'm gonna get sports nerdy for all of you folks out there who are like sports ball, but the Chicago Bears released a video basically revealing their new NFL schedule for the new season. And the whole video is basically a Bear parody, which makes sense, right? Because the Bears set in Chicago, the team is called the Bears. Even if you don't know anything about football, especially if you're a fan of the show, you should watch the video that they put out because it's basically old players and new players all in the beef store, being funny and stuff like that. Seth Rollins, the wrestler who's from Chicago, is also in the video. It was really good. So watching that video, I was like, I gotta watch The Bear now. So I started it over the weekend, went 3 episodes deep, and was like, oh my God, this is one of my favorite shows of all time already.
It's so good. And the new season comes out June 22nd.
Yes, I wanted to catch up before the new season too. And I do want to shout out to Io DeBerry. She is fucking phenomenal. Which Marvel thing is she going to be in?
She's going to be in Thunderbolts.
She's wasted in Marvel. They need to do something because whatever role she's going to be in Marvel, I don't think it's going to be worth it. They need to give her something else because, I'm glad she's in a Marvel thing, but I don't know. Like, she's so good in The Bear.
Yeah, she's really, really good. She was also good on, I haven't watched more about Abbott Elementary, but I did see the episode where she actually plays Janine's sister.
Oh, but she's not a regular on Abbott Elementary.
No, but that episode is really good where her and like the actress who plays Janine is like escaping my mind right now. But they're kind of like arguing and having like this, like talking about their, how they grew up. And it's a really good scene.
Yeah, she's a star and she's real good on the show. I will also say too, again, I'm only 3 episodes in, so no spoilers. But I think my favorite character is going to be the guy who bakes bread.
Is the donuts?
Marcus. He's the one like who makes the bread for everyone in the sandwich store. I don't know where any of this goes. So, but like right now, 3 episodes in, he's my favorite character. Because he's like, right now at this point, he's kind of like intrigued by Carmi's past life, and he starts like reading through his books and stuff like that, and he's like inspired, and it's kind of sweet. So like I
okay, yeah. So, he's a good character.
Yeah.
I really like everyone on the show.
And I already spoiled myself. Like, I know who Michael is, and I wish I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a cool reveal had I not accidentally looked at the cast list.
For those who have not seen it, don't look up the cast list. If you don't know, just watch it.
Yeah, Michael. So the premise of the show, if you haven't seen The Bear yet, it's basically Jeremy Allen White plays a guy named Carmi who's like a top chef, New York chef de cuisine at one of the top restaurants of all. Oh, and the chef he works for is another cameo. I was like, oh wow, he's in this. And if you're a fan of Community, it's really fun. Anyway, and then so he goes back home to Chicago to take over the sandwich shop that his brother ran before he died. So the guy who plays his brother is a very big deal actor, especially if you're into like nerd shit. And I haven't met him yet. And then I looked up the cast list because I wanted to get everyone's names right for my nerd pop. And I was like, holy shit, that's who plays Michael. So yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I knew that person was going to be on the show was because someone had tweeted about that he was on the show. And
I can't get mad. The show's been out for a year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I had started watching it right when the show like had just released its last episode. So like people had tweeted about who was playing Michael, and I was like, oh, so I kind of already like. Or no, I don't think they said Michael. I just think they said the name of the actor and that his stuff was like really heavy. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, this person's not been on the show yet. And then
who else could it
be? Yeah. So
yeah. Anyway, 3 out of 8. It's already one of my favorite shows of all time. I'm sure it'll only get better. And the new season drops next month. So I will be totally caught up by the time the new season rolls around. And maybe we'll talk about the Bear on Hard NOC Life going forward. We'll see. But that's what's nerd popping. It's also, like I said, the Chicago Bears. I'm a big Chicago sports fan, so it all makes sense that I would like to show. Oh, particularly like the first episode ends with a Pearl Jam song, and if anyone knows me, they know I love Chicago and I love Pearl Jam. So like that was like already, it hooked me, and I was like, I guess I'm all in on this show. But that said, Britney, how can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Hi Britney Monet on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and Hive. And then you can check out my other podcast is at Litroom @Litroom_podcast. And we just released a new episode. That was a lot of fun, and hopefully we will do another one in the month of June. So yeah,
and we need to bring back those folks on this podcast.
Yes, and you actually need to meet them.
Yeah, we'll see. In the meantime, you find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow, and Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color on all platforms. And go to hardknockmedia.com to find this and all of the podcasts in the Hard NOC Media family. Give us a rating and a review if you do. Check out our videos at youtube.com/the Nerds of Color and subscribe and give us a like there. Buy our merchandise at tpublic.com and search for the Nerds of Color, and go to patreon.com/the Nerds of Color to support us. There, Britney Monet, that's it for Hard NOC Life. Till next time.
Yes, sir.
Corner!